Bond is back, baby. In his third outing as 007, Brosnan returns to the role in 1999's The World Is Not Enough, a film that holds the distinction of being the last Bond film of the 20th century, the highest-grossing Bond film of the 20th century, and the last to feature Desmond Llewellyn as Q. Sadly, Llewellyn was killed in a car crash not long after this movie was released theatrically. The title, The World Is Not Enough, comes from the Latin translation Orbis non sufficit, which is also the Bond family motto, first mentioned in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. French actress Sophie Marceau, famous for her role in Braveheart, stars as Electra King, daughter of an oil magnate and victim of kidnapping by the film's villain, Renard, played by Scottish actor Robert Carlyle, hot off an electrifying role in Danny Boyle's Trainspotting. Late 90s hottie Denise Richards, famous for her memorable nude scenes in Wild Things, also stars as Dr. Christmas Jones, the first actress to win a Razzie for a portrayal of a Bond girl, and is also considered by many to be the worst Bond girl ever put on screen. And at the helm this time around is director Michael Apted, known for such films as Coal Miner's Daughter, Gorillas in the Mist, and Nell. The film sees Bond return to Turkey for the first time since From Russia with Love, as well as Spain for the cold open, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Scotland, England, France, and the Bahamas for the underwater submarine scenes. Packed with villains who can't feel pain, femme fatales galore, tons of gadgets, and lots of risque scientist outfits, this movie has it all. This is the 19th Bond film in the official Eon 007 series, 1999's The World Is Not Enough.
I like how the second time you said magnate.
I liked it better when she was the daughter of a magnet.
Yeah.
I think that was much
Yeah, I
funnier.
like that one better.
I think it can also be
I found her
pronounced
very
magnet.
attractive, so she must be a positive magnet.
You were polarized.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. The attraction is real.
Welcome to Bondcast, James Bondcast. I'm your host, Matt McGregor, along with my co-hosts, Harris McCabe. What's up, dude?
Hey, yeah.
And Colin Shaw,
It's me.
back again. Joining us again is our lovely engineer, Alex. What's up?
Hi.
She's back.
Riveting.
Good work.
Today we're talking about, obviously, The World's Not Enough. It's the last Bond film of the 20th century. I mean, they could have stopped there. It could have just been a 20th
They mentioned the
century.
Millennium Bug.
They
at
do.
some point.
The millennium, and they call it the Millennium Bug, which instead
Yeah.
of Y2K Bug, which is like the other name
Yeah,
for it.
I think
But
it was more
forgot that
British
even-
to say Millennium Bug.
I forgot that it was even called the Millennium Bug.
That
And-
big thing he lands on is the Millennium Dome.
Yeah.
Which I think they just tore down or something, because I don't remember seeing
I
it
think
later.
that was like a failed thing. Like they
Yeah.
built it for the Millennium and then did nothing or something, right?
Much like
Yeah.
the Millennium Bug.
Yeah, right.
It did nothing.
Yeah. So what do we think of this movie? Where do we want to start? As usual. in
We
the same-
start with the usual who made it and elaborate on that a little bit. We have Bruce Fierstein back for his third in a row as the main writer.
Third and final.
Joined by Neil Purvis and Robert Wade.
their first time, and they stick with the series pretty much up to where we are now,
Yeah.
right up to Spectre.
Our director, as you said, is Michael Apted, who I didn't realize. I remembered Coal Miner's Daughter, Gorky Park, Nell. He had a lot of really good movies. He sort of is in that drama space. Gorky Park was a thriller, but he made those sort of deep dramas. I didn't realize that he also directed the Up series. You guys know what that is, right?
Like 7 Up or something?
7 Up and 14 Up and 21 Up. It's
7 Up the cola. I'm sorry. Oh wait, the uncola. I'm sorry.
No, so it's
I don't know what you're talking.
It's a really impressive documentary series where they interviewed a bunch of kids in I think it's like 20 kids in London at age 7, and they do a documentary on their lives as 7-year-olds, and then they revisit those same people every 7 years when they're 14, when they're 21. They're at, I can't remember what they're at now. It's like they're in their like 60s or 70s, and the next one is due out in 2019. They already filmed it. So, and I don't even know how many of them are still alive. But it's funny because like I haven't watched all of them. I've watched a few of them, but it is kind of funny because you get to know these characters and then you check in on them and see like this kid who you thought was going to be this way is an adult his life has gone in a totally different direction, and sometimes it's great and sometimes it's tragic. It's really interesting, and he's directed all of them, and he said he's hoping to direct, I can't remember what it was. It was like he said he was hoping to direct like, you know, whatever, when he's 100, he wants to direct another, you know,
100 Up or whatever.
Yeah, whatever the thing would be. So
so I had read some bit of
like,
trivia saying that
whatever.
he's a part of that series as well as this, and they're like 2 of the longest running movie series that are out there.
It reminds me of Boyhood.
Yeah, it's exactly like that, except on such a more massive scale.
Yeah.
But really interesting and not fictional.
Narrative,
But this is the DP on this was Adrian Biddle, who did
Aliens.
Aliens, Willow, Princess Bride. He had a good. You know what's interesting? And he worked with a lot of sort of did a lot of action stuff and worked with a lot of really big directors. And he doesn't really have a distinctive style, except that he clearly knows what he's doing. He shoots really good, effective movies, and I guess he got his start.
I think Aliens was his first movie.
Well, he got his start working on actually one of his earliest roles was shooting underwater footage for Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Oh wow!
Because he was a cameraman. He started off as a cameraman, and he was a swimmer when he was younger, so he was one of the underwater cameramen on that. And I can't remember what the context was, but I think he was on the camera crew for a lot of Ridley Scott stuff, and then that's how he got recommended for James Cameron for the Aliens gig.
I think I could be mixing this up with a different Alien film, but I think they had one DP originally, and then he either died or was fired or like something, and then Adrian Biddle was brought in as a replacement.
Either way,
I noticed like he has all the like appropriate cutaways for small storytelling elements. Like Bond picks up a piece of ice and he has a chemical on his fingers. We see him pick up the individual cube. Bond's gun is a flashbang grenade, so we see it like on the desk in a like a shot by itself. Like he has all the coverage of all the story elements.
Right, and the action scenes are very well covered as well.
Yeah.
And you know they just seem there's a lot of clarity of geography and stuff that sometimes this franchise struggles with.
Yeah, especially the boat chase. I mean,
exactly.
It looks like. I mean, if you watch it with a critical eye, you can tell it's like, okay, stunt driver is driving a boat now, and Pierce is driving a boat, but it has so much coverage that it's like I feel like Pierce is driving the boat.
There's one like action shot that's famous in this movie that bugs me the way they chopped it in there is the part when Bond is in the little boat, the speedboat, and he dives underneath the blockade that's in front of him, and he adjusts his tie.
Yeah.
But then it sort of like just fades.
Well, I was
going to
ask you guys because I had the same thought. I was like, so clearly they couldn't
actually
make the boat submerge, and yet this boat apparently has the ability. The spy boat has the ability to submerge underwater, but they couldn't get it to do it,
or it's too dangerous, or something.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So they just used dissolves to sort of simulate it, and you felt like they didn't pull it off.
Yeah.
And I felt like you could see that they didn't pull it off, but I did appreciate that they sort of
tried.
Yeah, that they sort of made an effort to like be a little more abstract with it, and so you know.
I liked it.
Yeah.
You like? I understood.
You do like everything.
I mean, the water was more blue than the like Thames water is. That stuff is pretty brown looking.
I also thought like when he adjusts his tie, I was like, that's such a classic Bond thing to do in the middle of an action sequence and adjust his wardrobe. And I know I've seen that since then, and I could point to specific instances in later movies
where Bond, it in the tank
where
scene.
Bond does that. Did you do it in the tank scene? Because I was trying to remember. previous, because it seems like such a Bond thing to do, but I was trying to remember previous to even Brosnan, was there ever a moment one of the other Bond actors did? I can picture Roger Moore doing it, but I can't think of a specific instance.
I'm sure there's like some little times, but it's like, how are we gonna? We would have to go back and specifically looking for that.
Yeah, I think you're right though. I had the same thought. I'm like, oh, this is an homage to like when Roger Moore did it.
But I couldn't think of a specific instance. I can think of ones where Craig and Brosnan have done
Craig
it on other
does it
occasions.
in Skyfall, right?
Yep.
The cufflinks thing. I feel certain that the cufflinks thing is such a.
Yeah, it seems like it would be, but I don't remember ever seeing it before, and it definitely caught my eye here.
So let's jump into the cold open. It's
Since
a pretty
we've been talking
long
about
one,
it, yeah.
and we spend a lot of time on the cold open usually. So I'm sure nothing will change.
Did we look? How many minutes is it?
It's
like
almost 15. Yeah, just shy of 15. It's the longest cold open in the series. It wasn't supposed to be that long, but they felt like the opening scene was
not exciting.
Didn't have enough action in it, and they added the action in afterwards. And I thought they made a very good call there. I like the beginning. I like that opening scene because it's rather than the big action sequences that we usually get or some tense sneaking around bit, we get sort of this Bond matching wits and talking tough with this Swiss banker in his office. And it's kind of like every once in a while they just nail the dialogue and the setup of these scenes. And it's basically Bond is there to get some information from this dude. And he walks in, he lets them take away his gun. And he's basically such a badass that he's like, I'm not even worried about it. I'm going to sit down here unarmed in this room full of armed guys and totally mess with them. And what's his line? When the banker says, I'm allowing you to walk away with the money, and he says, I'm allowing you to walk away with your life.
But the better line is when the cigar girl comes over.
You can check my
says,
figures.
Would you like to check my figures? Yeah. I'm sure they're very well rounded or something. Right?
Yes, the classic.
They're all looking at him like, we're not using rounding here.
Do you know how accounting works?
This is important accounting. We need the whole number.
One thing that kills me right from this scene is like, I don't know, something about Pierce Brosnan's like look in this movie feels off to me. Maybe I could feel him aging or something, and I think it's because you could see like the beginnings of the like gray hair coming in on the sides.
Mr. Fantastic.
Yeah, he's got that kind of like what is that called, like wings or?
Yeah, and his hair is a little shorter in this one, and a little more.
He just doesn't look as cool. Like in GoldenEye and Tomorrow Never Dies, his hair's a little tousled. He just looks a little like. He looks cooler. I don't know how to describe it.
And I think a lot of it is that he does have this sort of, Brooks Brothers Junior CEO short conservative haircut, whereas in the past, Bond has usually had sort of long hair that's combed back, that's slicked back, and he does have kind of a very conservative haircut with a little bit of gray coming in. It just
I get that
it's
they want him
highlighting
to
it's
look
highlighting
dignified.
that he's
But
I didn't really see any of that. I do feel like he's like more low key in this one. A little more sedate.
Really? I feel like in this one,
There's a lot of scenes where he's not.
he's slipping right into the role. Like it comes natural by this
know.
point.
I sort of had the same impression Matt does, is that like he's a great Bond, and at this point he's not. He clearly knows it and is very.
He's got more
comfortable
one-liners
just sort of,
in this than the other two. Like he's just.
He knows all the parts and how to use them, and he's nailing every beat.
And he's got better like sex scenes or like scenes with women.
I mean, he's really good. He's the bras.
He's the bras.
And we don't, as opposed to the two previous cold openings with him, where they withheld his face for a long time and the scene built up without him. This one, I think he's first shot on camera is just, hey,
right
here's James Bond.
Yeah,
but
he's doing a lot of business
and he's wearing
with those
glasses in the beginning. Yeah, and like I
Yep.
know it's a bit and it comes into play, but like something about just seeing
You
Bond
hate
with
glasses?
glasses
You
on.
hate
Yeah,
people
it
with
just,
glasses.
Like, he feels like a nerd in this movie. I'm not gonna
So
lie.
attention to all our nerd listeners, you can go.
I'm
Matt
so
doesn't want you here.
I'm so glad I had
His
LASIK.
outfits, I'll
Me
get
and Matt
into
would
the
have never
outfits
like
later
been
on.
friends.
He's a big old bespectacled nerd.
Well, so he walks into the Swiss banker's office, and he's there ostensibly to recover some money that was stolen from, or that was used by a British diplomat to buy information. But really what he's after is there was an MI6 agent killed for the information, and he wants to know who did it, and he feels like the Swiss banker knows. The Swiss banker refuses to give him what he wants, so he sets off his flashbang gun on the desk that's
using
like a decoy.
the glasses as the remote.
Using the glasses, and then he
Thank God.
Overpowers-
So he doesn't have to wear them for the rest of the movie.
He wears them again, though, in the movie.
Yeah, he has glasses later.
He has lots of glasses.
Yeah, don't
But
remind me.
he overpowers all the banker's guys, and then he is trying to get the information from him when Thwack, the attractive cigar girl who had stopped by and offered him a cigar earlier, throws what looks like a projection knife, definitely not a throwing knife, into the back of the banker's neck.
A projection knife?
Yeah, like a switchblade where the blade comes directly out of the handle, and doesn't flip open.
I got the impression she just throws really hard.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's a classic movie thing of like, clearly whoever the prop master was did not distinguish between. He's like, he got a knife thrown at him. Any knife will do, whereas in reality, knives that you throw are usually a little different.
I'm just looking here at the IMDb, and like you mentioned the Swiss banker, and it reminded me that I recognize the Swiss banker, and I forgot to like look up who he is. Do you guys know what he's from?
I have no idea.
Do you watch Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
He's Balon Greyjoy.
Oh my God! Wow.
He's Balon?
Yeah.
That is something. Do you have the picture there?
Wow. Yeah. Right there.
Oh my God! Totally.
He looks different because Balon Greyjoy has long hair.
Yeah. Holy shit!
Whoa.
Wow. Well, there you go.
There you go. Connections, people.
Good job. Good eye. So the Swiss banker's dead.
Sorry.
The Swiss banker's dead. The cigar girl takes off, and Bond can't chase her because he is first one of the Swiss banker's guards holds him at gunpoint, and then a sniper from some unseen place shoots the guard for reasons that Bond doesn't understand.
With the red laser dot.
Yeah,
That's
the red
very,
laser dot. Yep.
Very late 90s. It's like,
Yep.
Laser pointers are a sniper thing.
And then Bond pulls something out of the blinds, a long ribbon out of the blinds.
Piece of the blinds.
It's unclear what it is.
That's the exact length from the window down to the street.
It is the exact length of like 3 stories of this building or whatever it is. He ties it to his waist. He ties the other end to one of the incapacitated bad guys, and then jumps out the window and catches at one point. But then the bad guy falls all the way to the window.
The leg of the table that he's holding onto
just snaps
off. Yeah.
And Bond escapes and walks away cleanly. End cold open? No.
Imagine if it ended there. That would have.
It felt like an appropriate
That's
place
the
to end it.
original cut.
It
right.
felt like an appropriate place to end it because we have this moment where Bond commits a daring escape, and then everyone on the street's looking at him funny, and he sort of adjusts himself and walks off like there's nothing happening. You can just see it irising in and getting ready for the action. But no, there wasn't enough action in it, and I agree. There wasn't enough action.
One of the things you do learn in your training is how to eyeball measure any length. So, like, if you see, like, a rope, even if it's coiled or in, like, a big, knot or whatever, you just look at it and that's 21.5 feet.
We should save this all for, like, a section at the end where Colin justifies every absurd thing that's happened in the movie. It's called Colin's getting a little defensive Colin.
It's just a known thing. If you want to be a high-level, operative, you have to be able to look at something and tell exactly how long it is in metric and standard.
Yeah, well, I guess I wasn't aware of that. My operative training is not complete, so
exactly.
So where do we go? What's the next scene?
So we're back with he goes back to base, where instead of rolling the credits, they actually just start the rest of the movie. And he goes back and he meets with first he gives the cigar that the cigar girl gave him to Moneypenny. And she says...
Was that a reference to Monica Lewinsky?
You know it was.
Okay.
You know it
Sure
was.
it was.
She says, I know just where to put this, which
Right.
of course is a reference to the Lewinsky scandal where we all found out way too much about what Bill Clinton does with his cigars. And she sort of turns it on its head by throwing it in the trash.
But then his line is really good.
She's better than that.
He said, it's just like our relationship.
Close, but no cigar.
Yeah.
That's nice.
But it's then he goes in and meets the diplomat. What's the guy's name?
Regina King.
Yeah, Reggie King.
Robert
King. Something with an R.
Regina King.
It's Robert King is in
My
there
bad.
with M. They're
I got
clearly
confused.
they're clearly old friends. And Robert thanks Sir Robert, as they call him, thanks Bond for recovering his money and says, "Be careful, Em, I might steal him away from you." And Bond says, "Well, construction isn't exactly my specialty." And M says, quite the opposite, in fact, which I thought was a pretty good line.
Yeah, the lines are really good in this one.
Yeah, solid.
And then Sir Robert goes to collect his money, and Bond and M are having a drink, discussing why Bond is not so high on Sir Robert, feels like he's getting special preferential treatment, and M's like, stay in your lane. And then Bond notices there's something weird going on with his hands. And I feel like this section would be better if we understood a little more about what Bond is seeing. But he freaks out because of something on his hands and tears ass out of the room and goes running all across the MI6 building, trying to keep Sir Robert away from the money.
I don't think we needed to know. It's a chemical, and that means something. And
Yeah, the
Bond knows
reveal
what it
is
means.
when the
I'm not
guy
saying
explodes.
I'm not saying
Yeah.
it doesn't work because we know it means something, but it would be nice if we knew specifically. I feel like there'd be more tension if we knew what the stakes were.
If he yelled the chemical formula as he like jumped out of
No,
his
no,
seat.
that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if you don't know what any of the context of anything is,
It's petrochloride 78.
if you don't
Everybody get out of the way.
No, that would probably not be a great way to handle it. I'm saying if they could have found something that tipped us off in an easier way to what exactly the stakes were,
Yeah.
that there was a bomb on the money. Even if he said, "Oh my God, the money's going to explode,"
Yeah.
I think that would actually.
Well, he
make
does
it,
scream the money.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, they clearly got the point across enough, but it's hard to create that much tension if you don't know what the outcome's going to be.
Yeah, it wasn't something as like visually like you don't just click as an audience
Right.
and say like, "Oh crap, that's."
You go, wow,
whatever."
Bond is really getting upset about this. Whatever he's upset about, clearly
My
it's
first
something
thought
serious.
when I see like the stuff on his fingers and in his drink is that they were poisoned.
Right.
Yeah. But anyways, the money blows up, and
Killing Robert King.
Robert King, and
Bond
then
almost saves him.
Bond almost
He runs
saves
through
him.
the whole
Yeah.
building screaming, "Move, move!"
And then
No
he
one
steals.
hears him.
And then actually everyone just pretty much ignores him.
Yeah.
Like,
What's
oh, Bond
the big
again.
deal? Yeah, he does that a
He
lot.
says that a lot. Yeah, they don't show
Center
the
of attention.
They don't show the 12 other times he's done that, and it's been a false alarm. It's like, just wash your hands more often, Bond. Jesus.
So then the bomb goes off and it blows a hole in the building, and Bond happens to
Good explosion.
look. Yeah, a good explosion. He happens to look through the hole, massive hole, and sees a boat out on the river. And it happens to be the person who,
The cigar girl.
yeah, and she starts shooting at
She's
him.
aiming a gun at him.
Which is, I mean, not to nitpick, but the explosion didn't come from outside the building. What are you looking out the hole for?
Yeah,
You just sort of like, he's just like, hey, this actually, we could use a big window here. This is nice.
Yeah.
I like this. This has got a nice view of the water.
Why wouldn't you look out the hole?
Because
wouldn't you be looking
I
at
think
like
the
hovering over the dead
survivors,
body.
or
Yeah.
trying to help, the damage inside.
There's
There's
Make
no
sure
reason
everyone-
for
But
there's no reason for him to believe that there's anything bad happening outside the building, but he knows there's a terrible thing that just happened in the room.
There is a potential, though. He knows that they exploded this specific place, right? So there's the potential that they did that for a reason. You know what I mean?
And now-
It is
and now
technically
Colin's
a
getting defensive
vulnerability.
with Colin Shaw. No, just kidding. That
It
actually
is technically
no,
a
I-
vulnerability in the building, which is supposed to be a very secure building.
But also, like, okay, let's say the cigar girl on the boat is there to ensure that the plan goes down.
Right.
Why would she immediately start shooting? Doesn't that like
Also,
give her away?
why would
I
she
think
be-
she was. Oh,
Also, why would she be down in the water where she can't actually see into the building? Shouldn't she have a higher vantage point where
Yes.
she would really need, if Robert King, if the thing blew up and he survived, wouldn't he have to come to the window and stick his head out and be like, hey, what's in this hole?
Or just assume that it went. That once you see an explosion,
Right.
like it
Yeah,
worked.
must have worked.
Yeah.
there is that deleted. We watched the deleted scenes.
Oh.
And the first time we see Renard was in this cold open, but it was
Ooh.
cut because the cold open's way too long.
Yeah. But that would have been good because he comes in really late. In
But
this
he
movie.
tells the woman, like, we have to kill Bond now because he's a problem for us.
Well, that definitely is. I think they were probably right to cut it out, but it's good information.
it would have made
I
that. It would have made
actually-
more sense that she stayed there,
Yeah.
looked at Bond, then shot at him.
Exactly.
I actually really liked the pacing and the introductions that this movie does. Like, we don't see the villain for a long time. We don't see the second Bond girl for a long time.
She is like almost literally at the halfway point, and he is not that much earlier. Yeah, it's very interesting. I thought they did a good job of withholding it. I would have liked to have been introduced to him personally at some earlier point than when we are.
And,
Even
yeah, I think
having
the
that scene
thing-
that he's in earlier in the movie would have helped me a little bit.
I think what takes away from it is that his introduction isn't that menacing.
The
And-
hologram?
I guess if you count that as his introduction.
I don't.
See, I think that is his introduction, and it's cool because it's a hologram.
Also,
I
personally,
think the Eternal Flame is
if
his
we're talking about
introduction.
Renard, I think he's a pretty weak villain. He's like not compelling at all. He doesn't like have any cool lines.
And
or like,
Robert Carlyle's so good in everything else that he's a bad guy
Yeah.
in. He's like one of the great villains in movies.
criminally like misused, mishandled here.
Yeah, I don't think he could possibly be a bad villain because he's good. Like his line delivery and everything, like all of the scenes that he's in, he's good. But they don't use him enough, and particularly at the end of the movie where an injured Bond is fighting a man who can't feel pain. That should have been a better fight, but we're getting ahead of ourselves.
I mean, we are getting ahead of ourselves,
yeah,
but just on
that's
that
way
note,
ahead of
like
ourselves.
the guy's whole thing is that he can't feel pain, and like they barely use.
They don't use it.
They don't.
Oh my
use
god,
it.
it's
Yeah.
so frustrating.
It's
It's
very
so frustrating. But anyway, somebody want to talk us through the boat chase? Bond steals Q's boat and launches himself out under the
so
river.
immediately from
Keep
the,
it quick.
the whole building, he runs right to Q Branch, hops in a boat, and then rockets it out of the side of the building into the Thames River, which makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the boat just happened to be there.
Yeah, it just happens to be a rocket boat.
Yeah.
And so they chase each other through the river. They're shooting, and
At one point, the boat has to go underwater. On another point, the boat has to go across land and like drive around the streets.
that part's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool.
It's got
Slash
the boat has
ridiculous
the first
slash
GPS with like an alternate route calculator that knows that the boat can go over land.
It's amazing. I mean, there's so much here that's ridiculous
And through a
lame,
restaurant.
but also they kind of pull it off, and I kind of enjoyed it. And I thought the boat chase was really good, and it ends with a great stunt that's like a blink and you'll miss it stunt, which I don't even know how they did it. I feel like they must have like where the boat launches into the air and a stuntman jumps out of the boat and grabs onto a tether that's holding a hot air balloon because the cigar girl is now escaping. She has crashed her boat trying to avoid Bond's torpedoes, and she jumps into a hot air balloon because when you're trying to make a quick escape,
Yeah,
obviously
perfect.
hot air balloon. And as she's rising, Bond launches his boat into the air and jumps from the flying boat and grabs onto the tether, and then she's trying to shoot him. And then she sees that the helicopters are coming to gun her down, and she decides to blow up the thing, to which he responds, "Don't do it. Don't blow us up."
Yeah, I think the hardest stunt was them dropping people on the Millennium Dome and making them catch themselves before they fall all the way off of it by using a rope.
Right, because that's how the scene ends, with Bond jumping from the tether onto the Millennium Dome, and then he's got to catch onto a wire.
Also, the Bond boat does a barrel roll when it jumps off the other boat to take out
Oh,
its
that was
gun.
pretty cool,
that
too.
was pretty
There was
rad.
a lot of cool stuff in this.
Its boat chase is really good. It's a little too long.
Yeah, but I liked it. It was all in all, this is a long cold open, but when it was done, I felt good about it. I was like, that's a solid cold open.
That transition of him being like falling onto the Millennium Dome and then going into the like visuals of the titles, I think was a better transition than whatever
Whatever they
would've
were going
got.
to do. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That was cool. It was almost like the beginning of Mad Men. It's like this guy's falling and then he turns into like a little animated character. And and then we're right into the main titles.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I really like this song by Garbage.
Yeah.
I think it's a.
At first I was like, what's this garbage? And I was like, oh,
Oh,
nice.
Garbage.
How dare you? How do you feel about Garbage? Did you listen to Garbage back in the day?
I mean, I only really knew their couple of hits that they had on the radio.
I did. I had a weird relationship with my Garbage fanership, fandom. I liked Garbage, and then I didn't like Garbage, and then I liked
What are
them.
their fans called? You know how like Barry Manilow's,
Garbagios?
or, like,
Garbage men and women.
Oh, I was thinking like dumpster divers.
All good suggestions.
Yeah, but like I don't know. I really it's one
Trash
of those
bags.
bands where I go. It's like I really like them, and then I'm like, no, I don't like them, and then I really like them. But I am a fan of 90s alternative female bands. Cranberries.
Love them.
I don't know how to express it.
That's your review, is just blowing air out of your mouth.
Yeah, but the look on his face is also part of the review. The people at home aren't grasping it, but it's
The people at home couldn't grasp it, if you know what I'm saying.
I don't want to know anymore about it. Let's not talk about 90s female-driven rock musicians
I
anymore.
think
Ron.
Garbage is an interesting choice for this song because, like, yeah, they were a popular band, but I don't know. I feel like they didn't quite make the mark of like classic.
Well, I think it's interesting because they didn't put their stamp on it. it's almost like there's no one kind of way to do a Bond song, because we've seen this before, and some of the most popular ones are ones like Wings did Live and Let Die, or The Spy Who Loved Me, what's the Duran Duran one, View to a Kill. Those are all distinct songs that sound like the bands that recorded them, and are still, their popularity is based on them just being good pop songs, not necessarily good Bond songs. And then you've got like obviously the Shirley Bassey style ones with the big virtuoso performances with like Golden Gun and Goldfinger and Thunderball. And then you got this whole other level of ones that, like, I think this fits into, of these sort of languid,
I think what you're trying to say is like Garbage breaks away from their normal style to like play a song that sounds more like a Bond song, and thus like takes away from their gravitas or like.
We saw it last.
Catchy.
We saw it last.
Catchy.
We saw it last month with the Sheryl Crow one. It's the same kind of thing where it sounds like a Bond song. I think there's like, on the one hand, what you risk is if it's not that good, these ones can be super dull and very forgettable. And on the other hand, even if it is great, it's never going to be as good as one of those other ones that really does something unique.
I think I think at this point it's become its own style, though.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, we need to do this in the style of a Bond song.
It's like I said on the last show, I think. Like, there's something... It's hard for a Bond song to also become, like, a good song. Like, a song that you would hear on the radio and be like... It's like a hit also.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think this song, like, straddles that line. It didn't chart in the U.S. when this song came out. I don't think many people would know this song.
Although it made a lot of lists. I looked this up afterwards. I was surprised. This ranked high on a lot of lists of the best Bond songs. I'll say this for it: it is catchy. I've been constantly.
You know what it does successfully? Yeah, you know what it does successfully? It picks like the right melody to say the title in, and the right cadence and pacing to say the title. Because I cannot tell you any other words, but I can tell you what it sounds like when they say the world is not enough.
Exactly. And it also does a great job of, this is something we saw last month with Tomorrow Never Dies, but they do a great job of using this frequently and seamlessly in the score for the movie. Yeah. It was constantly popping up in the score, and there's only a few Bond movies that really just seem like their score becomes something special, and it's part of like Live and Let Die is another one that, when you can incorporate the title song into your score and really make it count and make it, enhance the movie, that's a rare thing, and they do it very well in this.
Yeah, it's a good song.
Also, I mean, there's about to be 25 of these movies over, 50 plus years. They can't all be the greatest song ever.
Yeah, and that's this one feels like one of those ones that's aiming to fit in rather than stand out, and it does, and it's still very good.
Yeah, I think you have to. I don't know. It's one of those things. Like, sometimes it may be better to try to do it in the style of a Bond song, because
there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
What do we think of the titles? We have some good petroleum-based imagery here.
Petroleum-based.
That's rainbows, inky oil wells,
I love
pumping.
Those things.
Yeah.
Visually, they look cool. I mean, yeah, that's like, spells doom for ecosystems usually, but.
Yeah, personally, I think the style of this movie's like titles, I don't know. I don't know if I could place it into words, but it doesn't have the like mysterious feeling of like the older ones. Like, they're so bright. This one in the last movie too, like they're just very bright and like in your face and like not really that cool or inventive. Maybe it was cool at the time or something, I don't know, but like, I don't know.
I know what you're talking about. I think for me, it got points for being consistent with the theme and finding some really interesting visuals, because they have sort of the petroleum and how it's got rainbow tinting, so they use a lot of rainbow stuff.
Yeah,
and they do the women getting, the dark oil poured all over them, where you can't see their bodies, but you see them when the oil gets poured on them. It gets bonus points for that. I deducted points for. There's a real over-reliance on like digital compositing and cloning that you can it hasn't aged well, and you could probably, this is something you could put together once again in, on your laptop now in a pretty short order. and it would probably look better, you know. Like, so I sort of know what you're saying. It's like too bright and too clearly defined, and I think that's part of a residue of them doing it that way rather than trying to find a practical way to shoot a lot of this stuff.
I think, there's something about how the technology started just exponentially increasing for what they were able to do, and then like trying to fit that into the Bond style.
Yeah,
I think, sorry, go ahead.
some of the art was lost.
It's just like it's like, oh, this looks really cool, and in 97 it looks super cool because it's like computers can do this.
You see it in a lot of 90s music videos too, where they clearly have like amazing digital technology that they've never had before, and then they're using a lot of it. Right.
Yeah,
and not in an artistic way, just in the, hey, we can do this, so let's do it.
I think the late 90s and the early 2000s, are a lot of movies are. It's unfortunate that this happened to them. That like CGI wasn't quite up to the level that we know it is now, but they went for it. They went for it. Yeah,
I don't
think
the Bond movies are the biggest culprits of
no.
doing these.
And
things.
it doesn't really take away from the movie.
I do think the next one is worse, but we haven't seen it yet.
It's funny how how like old green screen and blue screen stuff doesn't bother me as much as bad like early digital stuff.
Putting digital imagery, because we're still shooting on film at this point.
Yeah.
Is this one not digital?
No,
it's not. Okay.
No, because I don't think the first digital one was
Casino Royale.
I think Skyfall was the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this was very early in that whole thing where people weren't even thinking that shooting digitally was even viable for if you had the budget.
We'd need a computer that's as big as a skyscraper.
It just wasn't done. Why would you do it? I mean, I think it was, when did 28 Days Later come out? Because that was one of the first movies where they were like, hey, we're going to do this.
I think that was around
big
04
budget
or
one.
Something
I think Star Wars Episode 2 was like one of the first ones also.
Right. That George
Lucas
was
also around 04
chomping at the bit to
right?
I think it's earlier. I think it was like 02.
Yeah, but it was all after 99.
Yeah.
Sometime in between 2000 and 2005 probably.
Yeah. Are we ready for our 2-minute plot run through?
I hope so. Are you getting a song?
I gotta queue up the song.
Okay. Yeah. We can wait.
So I read a piece of trivia, and I don't quite understand why it's significant, but it says, here, I'll just read it. It says, this movie and Sleepy Hollow are the only two films in U.S. history to open on the same day and each gross $30 million in their opening weekend.
Probably because it's probably rare because usually if a movie does that well, it cannibalizes
the other one.
It's probably rare for any two movies to make the same amount.
To have such a good opening.
They were both hits. Yeah.
This is cool. Sleepy Hollow. The guy in Sleepy Hollow looks like Tom Brady. You know what I'm talking about?
The guy who plays Brom Bones. Who is that?
Like the other guy. Like
I used
to have like
Casper Van Dien.
Yeah, that's his name. I used to have a conspiracy theory that he was Tom Brady.
With Denise Richards.
Whoa!
It's the 3 Degrees of Denise Richards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I used to have a conspiracy theory that he was Tom Brady.
He isn't.
He's not though. But maybe their clones are like.
He's got better hair.
Wait, who has better hair?
Casper Van Dien.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, Tom Brady is notorious.
Well, you are from New England. You probably think Tom Brady's a god or something.
I'm not a Pats fan.
Good.
I'm the one guy in New England who's annoyed by them as much as anyone else. I mean, I'm still on my TB12 diet though, so that's.
Oh, he has a diet. I was unaware.
Here we go. All right, I found it finally.
What is it like?
I think it's just water. Just a ton of water.
Okay.
He's basically like he is for men what Gwyneth Paltrow is for women's health.
Oh, it's
advocacy.
like a goop.
It's like a goop. Okay. Yeah.
Hold on.
You could even call it man goop.
I'm so glad you said that.
I'm thrilled. I'm very pleased with myself. You can't tell.
Sorry, I hate SoundCloud. I don't understand. Like, I just want to go back to the beginning. Why is this so hard?
Can't we just put a 2-minute timer up there and throw it in after?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do because I hate this.
All right. Okay. At least we got that man goop joke in.
It's being cut. This is all being
It's
cut.
being cut. Cut it.
Oh my god, the man goop joke was great though.
That's enough about man goop.
All right. Are we ready? Don't Don't start it before you show me that you're starting it. You
All
gotta show me you're
Ready?
starting it when you start it.
We're starting it now.
Okay, so it's the funeral of Regina King, and James Bond is there, and he's like, They're like, who's that woman? And he's like, it's King's daughter. She's, a young woman. And then they go to the Scottish castle, and James Bond has sex with the doctor so that she'll clear him because his shoulder's like totally fucked from falling on the Millennium Dome. And they're like, you should go, check in on Electra King because she should be at Target because we think it's Renard, who's a terrorist who kidnapped her once, and the amount of money in the bomb was the same amount of his ransom, and he killed King. So he goes, he talks to Electra, and they get chased on the ski slopes by parachuting snowmobiles with machine guns, and he gets away. And then he goes to Valentin's casino, and he's like, what the hell's going on here? And Valentin's like, I don't know. But then Electra gives Valentin $1 million in the casino, and he's like, what the hell? So then he figures out that he has to he's sneaking around the compound, and he ends up on an airplane flight. He goes to Kazakhstan where they're defusing nuclear bombs, and he meets like in the meantime, before he sneaked around the compound, he had sex with Electra because she was a hot woman. And then he finds another hot woman scientist when he gets to the Kazakhstan thing because she's in charge of doing that. And then Renard's there, and he's like, oh, they're stealing the bomb. But then the general guy is like, oh, this is bad. So they have a shootout, and Renard gets away. And then they bomb the pipeline, but he's like, Electra, you're evil, you're in on it. And she's like, nuh-uh, they're bombing my pipeline. And then he fakes like he's dead with the scientist woman. And they go back to Valentin, and Valentin's like, oh, she was paying me off for this submarine. And then they figure out that they're using the submarine to nuke Istanbul so that the pipeline can go a different direction, and they'll make all the money. And then he fights her in the place, and then he fights Renard in the submarine, and they win.
Not bad. Did he do it?
More
I
or
was
less.
5 seconds over.
Probably less. Yeah, that was.
That's the movie.
It's a real. I had read that people felt like this plot was very confusing, and I really didn't see that so much.
You know what's confusing is, so the very opening scene, he's in Spain, right? They moved that location twice because the first place it was supposed to be was
Switzerland?
No, that was the second place it was supposed to be. Oh, the first place was Cuba.
Oh, yeah.
Which is why she's the cigar girl. And the second place was Switzerland, which is why Balon Greyjoy is a Swiss banker. But then they actually shot the scene in Spain. And you don't get a lot in the dialogue about what's going on. You just know that later he says, like, oh, well, somebody wanted me to get back there with that money. And that's when they figure out it's Renard. And then later there's the reveal that Electra and Renard are working together. Actually, Renard's working for Electra. And I still don't think it's that confusing. I think
it isn't. It really isn't, because it's basically just the gold. Like the villain's plot is basically the Goldfinger thing of, we're going to irradiate half of my competitor or all of the world's whatever, and I'm going to be the sole person in charge. Like the motivation of why Electra's doing this is a little gray. And
well, I think what's confusing is, like you said, like the whole bit in the beginning with the money. I remember being confused when he was figuring out, like, oh, $3 million equals $5 million or whatever, right? Yeah. And I was like, how did they get these numbers? Like, and then also they didn't mention, like, I thought I missed something in the beginning. Oh, was he getting the money back? Was the money ransom money from her kidnapping?
No, the money was for the information about the people who were stealing the nuclear bombs, but that's not what the information said. It was just like it was loosely associated with those people. And also, he thought he was buying information about terrorists who were bombing his pipeline.
We need to move
But
on,
this
because
is not
my
pertinent.
head is hurting just talking about it.
It's not
Right,
pertinent
yeah.
to the main plot.
Right. This is all like the backstory might be confusing, as is the part about like that Electra actually, because the entire time we're led to believe that Renard, this anarchist terrorist, somehow turned Electra and gave her Stockholm syndrome, and it turns out that she actually seduced him and corrupted him, which is also does that mean he's not an anarchist anymore? The motivation of the people is a little murky, but the actual plot itself is fairly straightforward for a Bond movie.
It's all the little details that are like they're not crucial to understanding the plot, but if you go into the little details, it gets confusing. And like they don't give her a lot of lines, but obviously she resents her father because her mother was the one she viewed as the true
Yeah, she's got a line about that later, that her father stole her mother's throne or whatever.
Basically, yeah.
So did you guys, I mean, obviously we've probably seen this movie before or knew something about it, but did you guys ever think Electra King was a plausible good girl? Like, were you ever like, oh, she's totally legit?
I think so.
The first time I saw it?
I think they sell it for sure. I watched it with my wife last night. She had never seen this movie, and she was totally buying it. But then she even missed... Like, I kind of knew the twist, and there's a part where Bond is asking about Davidoff. Is that his name?
Yeah,
Davidoff.
And he says, like, what happened to Davidoff? And she's like, oh, I gave him the day off or whatever. And just the way she says it, and then they cut to Davidoff, and he's, like, with Renard. That's when we see Renard for the first time, and he puts the hot rock in his hand or whatever.
But that's after Bond has sex with her, right?
I don't remember, but for me,
maybe during.
That's the giveaway that she's the villain. Is like, oh, I gave him a day off. Like,
well, and then
AKA,
Bond immediately.
I
didn't even get. How did Bond know where that rendezvous was? How did he know where to attack Davidoff? Where he just straight up murders the guy and takes a split.
He just like pretended he was dead and then murdered the guy and then like took his badge and they were just like, get on the plane, and he just like.
But I don't even know why was he even there. How did he even figure out where that was?
Because he just started sneaking around
someplace that looks suspicious and just is like, hey.
I think they were like right outside the compound.
Oh, were they? Okay.
Like he was just following. He was just sneaking around outside, following people around until he followed the right one. He was in the
office, like looking through files, trying to find stuff.
This is the moral of the story. If you're ever in a conflict with a James Bond type person, no
sneak around.
No sleepovers. No sleepovers. How many times has he done this where he's like sleeping over at somebody's house and in the middle of the night he gets up and starts poking around through their stuff? This is how bad things happen.
Oh, right. If we were the villains.
Yeah, we're a super villain.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. Yeah, no sleepovers for James Bond. No, absolutely not.
You'll be leaving, sir.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I've got an early morning. Hint. You know?
But I think I figured it out at some point, but to the point where he actually has sex with her, like I'm still like, oh, this is another Bond girl.
There's something about just right from the funeral, I was like, she clearly hates her father. I don't know. Didn't seem like.
The clues are there. They're subtle.
Yeah.
You know?
Although I totally missed the fact, I had to, like, when I looked at it again, so one of the big reveals is that to sell the kidnapping story, she had to cut off her own ear because Renard wouldn't cut it off to hurt her. Mm-hmm. So she's missing the whole lower half of her ear.
But it's hidden.
It's hidden because she's always wearing big earrings, but always on one side it's actually an ear cuff that goes up her ear. And I didn't ever notice that. And then when she took it off and revealed it, I was like, oh, damn. And I had to go back and look, and sure enough, in every scene, the best thing about that, speaking of the technology not being where it should be, is they digitally remove her ear, or the lower half of her ear, and it is flopping all, like, it is like the line, the edge of her ear is wiggling all over the place. It is so poorly.
I didn't notice that.
Oh my God, it's so poorly done.
Mm-hmm. I thought it looked pretty real.
It's almost as bad as Javier Bardem's face in a movie that we haven't seen yet, but it is pretty brutal. Like the line of her ear where her ear ends like moves constantly, and I was like, couldn't they have painted it green, and like didn't they have that technology at this point?
I think you're nitpicking.
Would they hide it with the earring the whole time though?
No, but
there's only one scene where she exposes it.
And watch that one scene where she exposes it as she moves her head. It's like wiggling back and forth. It's not.
I bought it. I used to think that like they found a really hot woman with a half ear.
I feel like you need to watch the scene again. It is not hard to pick up.
I just thought it was a prosthetic.
It is not hard to. That's the other thing. They probably could have bent it back or
that's what I assumed.
They could have done so many things, but instead they digitally removed it, and it's bad.
All my wife kept noticing were her earrings throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, I noticed those. Yeah, like they're
that's
not like the whole time, but like when they're. At some point when it's like close-up shots, it's like, why is she wearing one big earring and one little earring?
I never even noticed that.
Yeah.
I just thought they both were big.
Electra King is played by Sophie Marceau, who is best known for Braveheart. And when I was like, she's a very familiar name. Like I recognize Sophie Marceau, of course, famous French actress.
That's it. She's got these two
and
movies.
literally, these are the only 2 movies. Like she's been in other stuff, French stuff, but nothing anybody's ever heard of. And I thought that was so bizarre that she's like.
Sounds so condescending. She's been in other stuff, French stuff.
But I mean, not even like French movies that we know. You know, like I mean, I'm sure maybe French people know her from other things, but like she hasn't. These are her only sort of international recognized hits. Is this and Braveheart? Which is
pretty strong.
But that didn't lead to more opportunities. She's never even been in.
She's still alive, right?
Yeah, but she hasn't been in anything, I think, for a decade or so.
I think both her and Denise Richards like fall into this weird nexus. Like they're only around in the late like 90s, like from when was Braveheart? 95.
I think so.
To 99.
Yeah.
And same with Denise Richards. And then they both kind of didn't do anything else.
Should we just, as long as we're doing
peaking.
the Bond girls, should we just jump right into Dr. Christmas Jones?
Dr. Christmas Jones.
Christmas
Right,
Jones.
right from her first line, you can tell this woman is brilliant.
Oh my God. I can't even take it. I can't even handle this performance.
Oh my
this is
God.
this is one of the most amazing, phenomenal, must-see performances in the history of cinema. Because you would not think that one actress who's like the 4th billed lead, who doesn't even show up for half the movie, could depreciate the value of film so dramatically and permanently on so many levels. I would have never
Or
guessed.
elevate.
Matt was like, I don't know what we're going to talk about. And I was like, what about Denise Richards' performance? And he was like, oh, yeah, I guess we could talk for a while about that.
I could do a whole podcast series on Denise Richards' performance. I want to dissect every minute of it. It's amazing.
I don't think her performance is bad in the sense that like she is a bad actress. I think she is just horribly miscast, and that we do not believe her in her role, and thus it makes every line that she says like not right.
I submit that it could be both.
Like,
so this is what I was saying. I was saying there are worse performances out there, in my opinion. The one thing she did do was she showed up and did what she was asked to do. And I'm sure on set, they were seeing what we all saw. And they were like, okay, what do we do? And they were like, you know what? She came here. She's saying the lines. She's trying to listen to him. She's doing what we're paying her to do. She just doesn't have the talent to do it the way we wanted to do it. I don't think we can change it.
what can we do? I don't know. Put her in some short shorts and make her boobies
shorten
look
those
big.
shorts. Shorten those shorts up. I've been on a set where an actor was hired who was like hired for various reasons that they couldn't get their first choice. They were making compromises and
Do
brought
you know
in
who the first choice was for this role?
Who?
They were not aiming high on this one.
It was Tiffany Amber Thiessen.
Oh,
And then they couldn't get her, and so they went for Jerry Hallowell, the
Ginger Spice. Yep.
oh.
and they couldn't get her. And
So they were clearly
Denise
looking.
Richards.
They were clearly looking for great actresses for this role.
Tiffany Amber
With
Thiessen
huge tracts of
is Kelly
land.
Kapowski, right?
yeah, that's right, Kelly
Yeah.
Kapowski. Yeah, but I've been on set when somebody starts acting and even like the grips are like looking at each other like, uh-oh, we're in trouble. There is a feeling of panic on the set when an actor really can't hold their own, where everyone's like, oh God, are we making a bad movie? I didn't want to make a bad movie. And that had to happen here. Here's my thing, though, that kind of blows my mind. So she broke out in 1997 with Starship Troopers, where every actor was terrible. And
Also
I think that was
miscast
kind
in
of
that.
I think that was kind of the point of that movie was to be like campy.
Exactly.
And then she was in another campy classic the same year called Wild Things, which she was actually like good. Like in that role, she was good. She pulled that off, and she worked with some much better actors who she held her own with. And later,
A space pilot that fights bugs. Okay, that was probably hard to explain to her how to understand how that person would feel.
She was in Drop Dead Gorgeous later. She was good in that. So she's not a bad actress. I think she's not a good actress, but I think the miscasting is
playing a fucking nuclear
big
scientist.
part of it. And she's probably a lovely person, and she's like had an interesting life. She was married to Charlie Sheen, so God bless her. Here's how good a person she is.
She has children with him.
Here's how good a person she is. She has 2 daughters with Charlie Sheen, and then later when his third wife, Brooke Mueller, lost custody of her kids because of a drug problem, and Charlie Sheen wasn't in any condition to take him. She took custody of his kids with his third wife,
and she
for a while.
She recently got married. She was like broke for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Like she couldn't pay for it. She had like a horse in Malibu, and she owed like $40,000 on the horse just for like housing it or something like that for a while.
I thought this is interesting. This is something I read. She had breast implants at 19 and asked for a certain size, and the doctor put in a bigger size. Which and so it was basically a botched surgery that did not go well. So when she was going to do Wild Things, and she wanted to get them redone and make them look a little better, and she had them redone, and this new surgeon also put them in bigger than she wanted. So she had 2 breast surgeries where the plastic surgeon was just like, yeah, we're going to go a little bigger with this one.
I mean, look at her. Come on.
Yeah.
We're doing her a
know.
favor.
That says something about the practices of plastic surgery in the fucking 90s.
Seriously. But she's very pretty. She's got a great face. She's plucky, and in a different role but they dress her in this Laura Croft outfit too, which just totally doesn't help sell this sophisticated nuclear physicist character that they've got her playing.
But they also attacked a certain market with casting her, and they like destroyed that market. Like we all remember
They
her
knew what they were
in
doing.
this movie
I was telling Colin
forever
before you got
from
here,
being, young and seeing it.
That first scene when they're in the like, what do you call it? Like the nuclear bomb, like underground storage, whatever. Like she's in those short, like you said, the Lara Croft outfit, and like every shot is just glorifying her, and like the camera will be from such an angle where you could see like her shapely like profile, like everything, and then that like low angles like up her shorts almost like they are really just gratuitously exploiting this girl's body.
Yeah.
And I mean that is clearly with their casting thoughts before. That is why she is gorgeous. She could be a really bad bartender in Hollywood. She is that attractive, that special, questionable life decisions kind of look that can get you far in certain industries. But it is something
likable about her too. I mean,
but it's so like her line deliveries wouldn't even the action moments like where you'd think now it's just run and jump. She's not even convincing in that. It's almost like when you see like an animal, like a dog or something. It's that you could tell they're doing the motions, but they're really reacting to a trainer that's off camera with a treat. It's like that's sometimes when she's running and jumping, I'm like, oh my god, are they just yelling? Okay, now jump, and now
there are even shots.
2 takes of this?
There are even shots in this movie where they cut to just a close up of her, and she's supposed to be reacting to like something that's going on, and her face is just blank. Like she has she doesn't raise an eyebrow. She just like I don't know. It's like
you know what I thought you were about to say when you went into that dog thing? I thought you were about to say, like when a dog is sick and like it can't tell you it's sick, so it starts acting all weird.
Oh,
I was like, that's wrong.
Yeah, it's an amazingly, like, you think, how bad could a bad performance hurt this? She is the well-deserved winner of the 1999 Razzie Award for Worst Actress.
I disagree. I don't think that she is the worst acted Bond girl performance of thus far. What movie was it? Moonraker?
There's been some bad ones. I'm not arguing
man. Like,
that.
There are some bad ones where they're like, no, James, no,
Yeah.
Like, at least she's not like that, or annoying. There have been like annoying roles,
that is a really clutch move to be this bad and not be annoying.
I felt bad for her the entire time. I was like, oh, this poor thing. She should have they should have cast somebody else. She should have said no.
Who would be a good actor?
I don't think
for
it
this role.
brings down the film that much because it's like kind of funny in like a way that's not.
See, you appreciate these movies being stupid though. Like like that's a plus for you if the movie's kind of dumb. You're like, oh, that's good. I like when the movies like actually are fun.
It also makes you work a little bit. You try to imagine, like, okay, could there be a nuclear scientist like that? Could it happen?
That's an interesting thing. Yeah. Like, who
that's what I'm saying. Who is the right person for this
you
role?
start trying to imagine like the decisions and like the life story of someone that would end up that way.
What about her Wild Things co-star Neve Campbell? I'd buy her as a nuclear physicist.
I could buy her in that role too. Yeah. She's like not.
There's only one woman
so,
board.
Like model-esque that it's like what like.
And she
why did no one in her life ever say like look, you're good at this nuclear physicist stuff, but like,
Why don't you
you're
model for a
beautiful.
few years and
yeah.
you can pick this up later when you're old and gray.
Yeah, for real.
No, that's and like Nev Campbell could probably like look like she isn't going to take shit from James Bond and is smarter than other people in the room. That's just off the top of my head. I feel like there was probably hundreds, if not thousands, of actresses that could have done this role better.
But like, what if it's like she is really beautiful, but she has some kind of social problem where like the only thing she understands
It's
is
science.
like she had
like
a horrible,
diffusing nuclear bombs.
She had a horrible
basically.
head injury, and all she can do is defuse nuclear bombs.
And
look
that's why
pretty.
she has a
Yeah.
really hard time relating to people. She doesn't understand that she looks like that when she like.
You talk to her, and the conversation just always ends up about plutonium.
Right.
Oh, here we go again.
Right. She's like, I don't know anything but my job. It's everything. To
I know
me."
plutonium and lip liner. That's
Yeah.
it.
Let me take my shirt off and talk about it more.
yeah.
That's a possible, way that character could
It's-
exist.
Not to mention that the name of her character is like one of the first things that she says, and right away it's an eye roll.
Yeah.
It's like a stupid, nonsensical name.
And they give her a line so that she can play off the eye roll, but she doesn't deliver it well enough to
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And then we end up getting a bunch of Christmas puns at the end because she basically specifically says no Christmas jokes, and then at the end she finds it charming when he's,
I don't know any physicist jokes.
Yeah. That was a pretty good line.
Yeah.
That's honestly so far my biggest complaint with the Brosnan movies are like everything doesn't have to be a fucking pun. Like we can occasionally
This
like
one
But these ones are so
Kills it.
funny,
we can occasionally leave them alone. They're like every once in a while you could leave a pun on the table. It won't hurt us that much.
Oh, what does he say when he's like about to have sex with the doctor? Doctor, what's her name?
Oh wait, we
Warm
wrote it
Flash?
on the
Flash,
board.
Molly Warmflash.
Molly Warmflash.
That's
Great.
That's the MI6 physician that's got to clear him for active duty, even
Mm-hmm.
though he's in no condition to work.
But like he's sitting on the doctor's like table or whatever, and she comes over to him and he says like something about skirt. Let's not skirt.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Skirt the situation or
Let's
something.
not
Yeah, let's skirt the
and
issue.
he rips her skirt off.
And he
Yeah.
rips her skirt off.
Yeah.
It's great.
He doesn't rip it off. He slowly drops it to the ground.
Yeah, she obliges.
It was very consensual. We've always got to make that clear in a bond.
She was on top. He was on the medical examining table.
He was in no condition to.
There was another good deleted scene here. Like after he has sex with her in the doctor's office, they cut to him like leaving in the hallway, and he closes the door behind him, and standing there is like a
Suit of
armor, and he puts like something over it.
The
It's like
arm sling, because you have to like put your arm in a sling when your shoulders hurt.
Oh, it was his arm sling?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even catch that. I thought it was like a
Because
article of
he's
her
in a
clothing.
sling during the funeral, and they go right from the funeral to there.
Right.
And then he goes to the doctor, and he's like, "You've got to clear me. I'll, give you whatever
I'll give
you
you a
need."
semen sample.
Yeah.
So he puts the arm sling over the suit of armor, and he looks at him as if he's a person, and he says like, "Oh, the things we do for England," or right?
Yeah.
Is that the line?
Yeah.
Which is a line that's been repeated in like earlier movies.
Yeah, he's really making a great sacrifice having sex with a hot doctor.
Yeah, exactly.
Poor guy.
Yeah, and anytime you see like a suit of armor anywhere, you gotta like sillily talk to it as if there's
Yeah.
something inside of it.
Obviously.
It's just the
Oh,
way it's
man.
done.
All right, so we got the girls. There's only three women, including the doctor.
Cigar girl.
And
Cigar girl.
Oh, true.
Yeah,
And she dies in the hot air ballooning accident.
Yeah. Yep.
Let's talk about the villains.
Yeah, the bad guys.
Yeah,
Obviously, one of those bad guys is one of the women, Electra. But
yeah, that's the big twist.
Mr.
of this
Bullion
movie.
does not believe in banks.
Mr. Bullion.
Bullion. Yeah, Bullion is his name is Goldie.
Does not trust banks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was actually shortened from Goldilocks because he used to have blonde dreadlocks, and they cut them off, and they just started calling him Goldie. But he's a UK graffiti artist, DJ, and breakdancer, known for his blonde hair and gold grill. He was actually pretty good in this for like a guy who obviously isn't a trained actor. He was a memorable thug. He was
You
definitely.
can tell he really puts his money where his mouth is.
That is
yes.
the great joke. Yes.
He's got that briefcase that's encrusted in gold. He's got gold rings on every finger. He's
Yep.
got gold chains.
I love when he leaves the briefcase in and it's a bomb and it blows up and they all yell bomb and they run out of the room.
Yeah.
But the briefcase is literally sitting inches away from a woman who is typing obliviously away and couldn't possibly have left her desk by the time that thing blows up. Like, it's like
So we
sitting
just
in your
ignored
face.
that this woman got
Yeah,
vaporized.
exactly. Like Bond goes diving out, then the chase started, and we're like, wait, wasn't a woman just horribly blown to bits in that room?
This one also has a lot of
a
that.
moment to mourn.
This one also has a lot of that bullshit bullshit where they're just shooting machine guns at each other,
And
like,
no one gets hit,
There's
yeah.
like sparks flying.
Classic
around.
Brosnan.
Yeah, the '90s, like that was.
There's
how
straight
movies
up
were
a
made, I
scene where
guess.
Renard picks up a machine gun and Bond he was 5 feet away from him, and
Yeah.
he just turns and starts spraying bullets, and they just like the
They go in two different directions before like getting out of the way.
the spatial arrangement of the room like doesn't make sense. Bond would be dead. Well, they just cut to Renard shooting, then they're never in the same shot together, and then
Yeah.
they cut to Bond running. But like previous to that shooting, they were literally like as close as we are to each other right now.
That's also where they have the scene where there's like 4 soldiers that Renard and his men have to kill. And is that the one you're talking about with him and Christmas Jones in the bomb?
Yeah, when they're
area?
underground.
Yeah.
There's 4 soldiers that Renard and his men have to kill. They managed to very quickly dispatch those soldiers really quickly. And then after all that shooting's done, it's seconds later, and Bond and Christmas Jones, Bond is like grabbing her by the arm going, hey, we've got to run. Here, jump in
that's
here.
exactly what we're talking about.
And
But he's only like 7 feet from
Yeah,
him.
exactly. And
there's nothing like blocking them.
Yeah, there's
Like,
nothing
they
in between
could
them.
just shoot them.
Also, when we cut to Bond ushering Christmas Jones away, she's just standing there, sort of staring off into his face, and until he touches her arm, she's like, "Oh, hey, I didn't see you there." And he's like, "Yeah, run! There's everyone shooting machine guns." And she's like, "Yes, okay, good. Run, and tell me when to jump."
3 people just died in front of this woman.
He's
and
always like
she's
ushering her
just chilling.
along.
And she was like, "I was
like a
just thinking
child.
about neutrons."
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my
Who's
God.
another bad guy? We have her Elektra's personal bodyguard, Gabor.
Gabor.
I
Gabor.
didn't know that guy's name.
He's played by John Seru, a Australian. He was from the Australian version of American Gladiators.
Oh,
He
cool.
kind of looks like Superfly on HGH. I don't know if there's like.
I was thinking he looks like that singer. I can't think of his name. I'm gonna look it up. Keep talking.
At any rate, I think it's interesting that they have an Australian version of American Gladiators, which I think is just called Gladiators, instead of Australian Gladiators. Which, I mean,
Maybe it's called Gladiators Down Under.
it isn't though. I think it's just called Gladiators.
Gladiators Down Under sounds like a thing.
I think Australian Gladiators would have worked too. Why not do that? Oh, and also I noticed they still like on foreign American Gladiator programs that weren't from America. They tended to stick with the red, white, and blue themed outfits, even though I guess
It's part of the
Australia's still-
property.
yeah. Well, Australia still has the same flag,
Yeah,
right? They must have some Union
No,
Jack
they have a
shit there.
flag that has like Union Jack as part of it, but it's not.
But it's mostly
a Union
kangaroos.
Jack. It's a picture of a kangaroo with no, I don't know. I thought it was like a Union Jack
The
up in the top
kangaroo-
left
it's a
corner,
picture of
and
a
then like
kangaroo
there was
and-
other stuff on the other parts of it.
It's a picture of a kangaroo in manacles.
I was thinking of Aaron Neville.
Yeah, you're right. He does
Who's
sort of-
that?
He does sort of look like a young Aaron Neville. One part of the Neville brothers.
Yeah.
Tell it like it is.
All right.
Yeah, but Australian gladiators, they should let the kangaroos compete. If anything.
Oh, absolutely. I assumed there'd be a kangaroo on the show in some capacity as a gladiator.
That's like one of the gladiators.
Yep.
Just call him Boss or something.
Yeah.
Or Hops.
Joey.
And then so he's not really a villain, but we have the what's the Russian dude's name who comes back from GoldenEye?
Valentine.
Yeah.
Zukovsky.
Zukovsky.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's actually not a villain. He's a Quarrel in this one.
He's a Quarrel, yeah.
Yeah.
He becomes a Quarrel.
His
It was nice to have him back.
death scene is ridiculous, and it's so
Because he should have just
stupid.
killed her, right?
Well,
He could have killed her.
Yeah.
Or she could have killed him. He did
So-
it so slowly, like he's aiming his cane gun.
so here's the situation. Let me set it up for the folks at home.
Who definitely haven't seen this movie.
Yeah, she's got Bond in a chair where she is twisting a thing that pokes a thing
It's
into
a
the back
torture
of his,
chair that will eventually break his neck
Break his neck
slowly by
and give
putting
him-
pressure on the back of his
and also
neck.
give him a massive erection, which she makes a joke about.
But that's the way she was doing it. The chair doesn't just give you an erection.
No, the getting your neck snapped often does give you an erection and
Oh.
can cause ejaculation. That's
My bad.
That's
What?
oh,
Is
you
that
guys
for
didn't know
real?
that? Yeah. When a lot of deaths can cause erections, especially ones that affect the spine or the brain.
Central nervous system.
Yeah, but there's like particularly they used to talk about it. It was called angel's lust or terminal erection, when like hanged men would frequently get boners and ejaculate after they were hung.
What?
Because that's just like a natural involuntary reaction to
I'm
being
looking this up right now. I've never
killed.
heard of this.
Anyways,
Fascinating.
so that's
Oh, you know
that's
what?
a joke she's making.
But also, he could immediately look down and eyeball how long it was. because that's part of the training.
What is the line that she says to him in reference to this?
I can't remember what it was, but it was like she just makes some vague reference to, when she's straddling him, she's like, you know what happens when your neck gets snapped, and so that
I
was,
thought
This is
something
very
else
true. I
was
just
going
looked
on.
it up.
And I thought she was like turning him on or something.
Death Erection, which is also the name of like a really cool
Metal
band.
band.
from the 90s.
absolutely death erection. Well, I'm glad I could be educational today too.
All these are cool. Death Erection, Angel Lust, Terminal Erection. Wow.
Nice.
This is great. All of these are great band names.
All
Yeah.
pretty good band names, yeah.
Yep.
So, anyways, Valentine comes in and his people are assaulting the place because she killed his nephew, and he comes in and she shoots him, and he is dying on the floor, and he's got a cane which has a gun in it, and he very slowly raises it up like he's going to shoot her, and then instead shoots the thing that Bond is tied to the chair, shoots like his hand free from the manacle.
Right.
And then Bond is able to free himself and overpower Elektra.
Zukovsky really hated you.
Yeah, because she thinks that he's going to kill her, and then
Yeah.
he ends up shooting at Bond with his dying breath. It does all happen in super slow motion. I did think about it later, though. If he had just killed her, Bond would still be stuck in the chair.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, that's
shoot,
it's
like
the
it
smart
makes sense.
move.
It makes
but
sense.
the smarter move would have been go in there and don't let
And
Elektra
don't let
shoot
Elektra
you.
shoot you. Yes, he does. He does almost go out of his way
Which
to get
could
killed
have
by
been
her.
done.
Yeah.
She picks up a hat
And
the
a
hat-
gun.
the hat of the Zukovsky's son.
Nephew.
Zukovsky's
A
nephew
submarine
was the
captain,
submarine captain, and they killed him. And she has his hat on the table in the room, and she slowly walks over to the table, picks up the hat, and then hides a gun behind it. All while Zukovsky could have
Just
shot
shot
her
her,
or
yeah.
done something.
Yep.
I'm sorry. I'm still reading about death erections over here. I'm so
Don't be sorry.
fascinated by
Don't
this.
be sorry.
I think.
I can't believe I've never heard this in my life.
Do you know what's also interesting? You know what a mandrake tree is? Well, there's a tree called a mandrake tree, and it's got a root that has some like psychotropic and drug properties.
Oh,
and,
yeah, I've heard of that.
And anyways, they say the roots look like little men, and the
It's like in Pan's Labyrinth.
yeah,
there's
and
one,
the, and the
right?
sort of the mythical rumor about these little men that are born of roots was that it's every mandrake tree starts when a hanged man ejaculates, and it goes into the earth, and then that's why you get these little man-shaped roots, because they're like half man, half plant.
Interesting.
But that is not true.
I'm not a scientist, Colin. I don't know. I can't tell you where mandrakes come from.
Well, you'll never have believability as a scientist.
Yeah, well, not with these split ends.
You get it?
Yeah, it's a
Hey,
Christmas Jones
I'm
joke.
making sure Matt
Bringing
gets
it all
it.
back to Christmas
Yeah.
Jones.
I'm sorry.
He's still reading.
I'm
He's
still reading
reading.
about penises over here.
So fascinating.
Can we talk about the paragliding snowmobiles? One of my
Parahawks.
Yeah.
the Parahawks.
So
Why?
dumb.
Why is that the best way to kill someone? How is that the best way to kill someone?
I actually rolled my eyes. Like when they were skiing, I was like, this is a cool scene. They're skiing. And all of a sudden you hear, and you see what it is. And I was like, oh,
They're
here we
so
go.
dumb, but I love them so much.
Yeah.
It looked so fun.
Yeah.
they paraglide, and then they
did
land,
look fun.
and they snowmobile, and then they jump off a cliff, and Bond's like, "See you back at the lodge, sucker."
Great
And
line.
then they open up another chute, and the guy's right back in action, because that's what a Parahawk can do.
Yeah.
And it finally makes sense that they're missing him with all these machine guns, because it must be hard as hell to shoot or bomb somebody from these things. They're barely in control.
Which is like, why did you send in the Parahawk? The
They're-
only explanation I can think of is that like they got Bond and Elektra's location at a certain time where the only way to reach them immediately was to go in with Parahawks, because they are in a remote location. They're on top of a mountain, right?
Yeah.
But there's got to be another way.
It's
This is
preposterous and very enjoyable.
This is one of those great things. Like this only really exists in the world of Bond. Like,
Oh yeah.
have you ever seen a Parahawk in life?
I can't imagine. They for all I know, they got built for this movie specifically.
How do they come up with these things?
It's like a fan from a fan boat on the back of a snowmobile with a parachute deployed.
Yeah, and of course the ending of this scene is completely cheesy, where Bond ski jumps and uses his ski to cut one of the Parahawk's
Impossible.
parachutes,
Making
which
it
then
so
makes
they
it go out of
crash.
control, and it crashes into the other one. And then somehow, when that explosion happens, just feet from him because he just landed on the ground. He's like fixing his glove or something. He's totally distracted by this havoc that he's caused. And then an avalanche comes, and somehow he and Elektra it comes in like waves.
Because they use the special coat that
They
Q
use
gave
the
them.
special Q coat to get a protective bubble around them. But they have enough time to deploy it because like the avalanche starts and they scream and they deploy the coat, and then the avalanche stops for a second for the coat to fully deploy.
And then Elektra freaks out, but then she's calm again because Bond's like, look at me in the eyes.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
which makes you think like, oh, Elektra trusts Bond, so she must be good. But
Yep.
found out Susie.
I never bought it. But that's how their romance gets started, even despite M's explicit instructions to shadow her. And she's got a great line where she goes, shadows stay in front or behind, never on top.
But like, she had to know. I mean,
Oh, yeah. I'm sure she assumed that
Yeah.
this would happen. She doesn't send her best agent out there to not bone the girl.
I mean, she knows what's up. She knows what she's getting into.
yeah. If anything, it's an asset, you know?
So then we've got the saw choppers.
Oh, my God. Yeah, those are a real thing. Did you...
I figured they were.
I
They
did not
felt
know
like
that.
a real thing.
They're not really like that, but this is the only thing I remembered from this movie, and this is one of the reasons I had a very negative impression of this movie.
This is one of the
going
bad
into it.
CGI things. When they go raid the caviar factory with those things, that's the really bad CGI.
Only
in this
when
movie.
one of them explodes and the saws go everywhere.
No, when they first come in and start flying in, like you can tell they're just like
I thought a lot of that looked practical, but when the saws explode and fly
No,
all
like
over
the
place,
wide
that was
shot
terrible.
when they first
oh,
when
the
they
wide one,
first
yeah,
come
yeah.
in, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
that looks like
Yeah,
that looks totally CGI.
there's
and
a
like
mix of
90s CGI.
bad CGI and then practical, but not very scary practical. It's like this clearly isn't a great weapon.
It's
to
clearly like
use.
on a rail system.
It's a
like,
cool
it's
scene
just-
though because they built this little factory and then they tear it apart all in one scene as the scene goes through and you're left with it totally
The
destroyed.
second they show the factory and like the car pulls up and you get that big wide shot, my first thought was like, this looks like a nice set that's gonna blow up.
This place doesn't look like it's really fixed into the ground. It's not made of stone. I think maybe it might.
I can
be
imagine this
destroyed.
collapsing into the ocean. Well, these helicopters have these long, what are they, like 20-foot long rigs descending from the bottom of them with
like
giant
5
saw blades.
saws?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Circular
five or
saws.
six circular
Yeah.
saw blades, huge circular saw blades. And when I saw this, I was like, what a stupid, like, how does this even land? This doesn't make any sense.
I don't think you could cut a car in half with that though.
No, you definitely couldn't.
How
But
does it land?
What's
That's a great
interesting is,
question.
well, what's interesting is the real ones aren't fixed, aren't attached directly to the helicopter. They're
can't
on
come
like
off.
another 20-foot cable, so they're dangling from a cable, so the helicopter can take off and land. And then they just sort of swing these things. And what's amazing is the YouTube video I saw is somebody using one of these things to cut trees along a roadside so they didn't grow into power lines, meaning he is swinging this fucking giant saw
Near
literally
power
as
lines.
close as he can to power lines with a helicopter. It doesn't look hard. It doesn't look easy to control. It is the most insane thing. I was just terrified on behalf of this random YouTube pilot that I assume survived. But yeah, no, very dumb gag and very impractical way to try to assassinate somebody that you really want to kill.
The way they set it up, where like this place is like a caviar factory, and the scene ends with this place is totally destroyed, makes it a good scene though. Like
Yeah.
that progress you see.
Yes, it was. Oh, Matt's got the clip right here. Oh, and we get to see it take off too.
Right. So the saw blades like start out on the ground, and then the helicopter takes off, and it has a long like pole that's attached
okay.
to the saw.
Oh, there's like 10, 12 saw blades on that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
It looks
Then
scary as
the
shit.
helicopter takes off. Yes, I see what you mean. It's
It's like
dangling.
40 feet of
But do you think that
cable and
That looks
Whole-
impossible to control. Oh
I know.
wow, he's going
I
right
know.
at the
They're going
power
right
lines.
near the power lines. It's nuts.
Do you think the pole is rigid?
And look, it swings and everything. No, it's
It's
swinging.
moving. You can see it moving.
But like the blades,
Ooh,
they always
cuts
stay
the
in
hell out
one
of those trees,
direction?
though, right?
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's probably in that way. It's got to be fixed in a
to
specific
be
direction.
fixed. Yeah, I
'cause
can
look,
tell
they
it
don't
is,
they don't
yeah.
rotate at all.
No.
Yeah, it does look like it's a pole and not a cable. That's some
It's
crazy
still
shit,
moving
though.
a little bit though.
Oh yeah, it moves
really
quite a bit,
cool.
and they don't. I mean, it's hard to tell, but they don't look like they're very far away from those lines. There has to be an easier way,
Wow.
or a less.
Bond.
All right, here we are.
We're back.
So we had a technical difficulty there. Our previous recording space exploded. We made it out by the skin of our teeth. And here we are at a totally new recording spot.
Yeah, when the ninjas started rappelling through the windows, I'll be honest with you guys, I freaked out.
Yeah.
It's weird that we all look totally different now because they had to replace so many of our body parts that they just gave us new identities.
Yep.
What's really weird is that they just made us look like each other.
Yeah, exactly. I get confused sometimes which one of us I am.
They took Colin's long flowing hair and made it my pubes now.
We were blown to bits, then reassembled.
Yeah,
with like random parts.
Yeah, kind of a face-off situation, but more of a pubes off.
Pubes up.
Yeah, pubes off. Yeah. But the important thing is, after that climactic finale of some other movie that we were minor characters in, we are now here to talk about the climactic finale of The World Is Not Enough.
Oh boy. Yeah. So
We've covered most of it. Now we just got to get to the part where Bond is on this submarine. And
did we talk about the part when he dives into the water?
Where he has got to go outside of the submarine?
Yeah. He dives from like a window. Doesn't he jump out from
Oh,
like...
yeah, right.
like a
when
ledge.
when he's chasing the submarine and he does a swan dive off a cliff.
And it's been so long now since I've seen it, but I remember that being notable for some reason. It was either like really bad CGI or like the stunt was clearly not...
It was an editing trick because wherever the submarine was like not where they shot. They didn't shoot the locate. They shot the location with like the B unit, and everything else. Them being there with the A unit was like not that location.
Oh. I remember the swan dive. I don't remember anything notable about it. I thought you were talking about when he's in the sub, and he and Dr. Christmas Jones are trapped on one side, and Renard is on the other side, and he has to swim outside of the sub through the airlock. And then go in the other side, and she has to let him in, but then she gets screwed up where she can't hit the button and she does a pretty good job there. She gets him in eventually, but I just remember that was actually pretty tense, and I was like, oh, they actually are doing a good job here cutting this thing together where I care, and I'm not sure what's going to happen.
It's probably because Denise Richards is like one of the greatest actresses.
I think she sold it.
I feel like she's a good swimmer in real life. Like,
I mean, she must be
She's
good at
certainly-
something, right?
she's really famous for a pool scene, right? For her acting.
Exactly. You know, maybe that's it. Her acting really comes alive underwater. It's like, you add water and Denise
It's
Richards
triggered
gets-
by water.
Maybe she's confident in the water because of her buoyancy.
That's probably it. Yes, I'm sure that's what it was. Did any of you understand what Renard was doing there? And
You mean with the long like pipe thing?
Using the rods.
yeah,
Rods?
but like, didn't they have to drive the sub somewhere to complete their? They literally just unparked the sub and then immediately started blowing shit up or whatever, executing their plan. Didn't they have
This
to go
whole
somewhere in
sequence
it?
makes
They
no sense.
so they took the sub.
That's all I wanted to just confirm that this sequence made no sense
and
to
it's
anybody else.
anticlimactic. It's
All right,
like,
let's go to
what
Colin
is
to
happening?
explain why this
The
nonsensical
submarine,
gibberish
the
is
submarine
actually.
was supposed to irradiate all of Istanbul, so they had to like bring it down to the middle of the bay, so they got a good blast radius. And then
they were in Istanbul. I don't even remember.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
See, but it's this part of the movie where they should have used his powers of not being able to feel pain to like utilize something. Put him in a room where it's like radiation and it's gonna burn your skin or whatever, and he can't feel it, and so
Right.
he's the only one who could do it.
Or just
was
during
kinda
the
like
or
that.
just during the fight scene with Bond, have Bond like stabbing the hell out of him and kicking his ass and winning the fight, except that he doesn't care because he's indestructible and can't feel any of it.
Or have it be the reason for his demise, like Bond was like killing him,
Lights
and
him
he
on
didn't
fire
even
and he
notice
doesn't
it.
notice
Yeah,
until he's dead.
yeah.
that'd be
Yeah,
good.
any of those things would have been good. Instead, they have the man who can't feel pain, who just gets into a regular bad guy fight with Bond, and then the pressurized metal irradiated rod thing blasts out of the thing into his chest, but it goes in dull end first and sticks to him, which I thought it's got like this
Yeah.
really pointy sharp end, and then it's got a dull end, and for some reason it blasts into his chest dull end first,
It
which
just
was
like
kinda
raised
crazy.
too many questions, and
High
you're
pressure.
like, what? Why? How would this kill him?
It wasn't. I mean, what you're saying would have been better, but it wasn't as bad as the crisis I feel like you guys are having.
Oh, well, no, I'm just saying, don't have a cool character idea like this
No,
guy
you're,
who
you're
can't-
both having a serious crisis about how
It's just a
disappointed
major
in the
missed
movie.
opportunity.
I'm just saying, like, if you want this movie to be as good as possible,
Yeah.
you want them to actually not blow the easy ones. This is a layup.
You're
this is a
right.
great character idea that they didn't. And then at the end, she says the hydrogen gas level is too high, and she has to stop it. And then he just tells her to get to the top of the sub. Like, was there a scene that was cut out? Because it seems like there's still a crisis that she says she has to prevent. And then he's like, and her line reading on the hydrogen levels too high is hilarious. It was the worst in a long line of worst line readings. But
She knows all about hydrogen gas.
But then what the fuck happened where he's just like, no, never mind. Just go to the top of the sub. We're fine.
No, that was, I think she was talking about the pressure buildup that he used to shoot the rod through him. That was the hydrogen gas buildup.
But she says this after the rod's been shot. She
that was
says
after?
the hydrogen gas buildup's level is too high. I've got to release the pressure. And then he's just like, okay, let's go to the top of the sub and forget all about that line that you just said. Totally.
I think at that point he's like, let's just trash this sub and get out of here.
Much like us with this podcast, it's like, let's just get this over with an end.
Maybe he doesn't know what line she said because he was like, he had given up at that point.
And then lastly, of course, we have the button, which is mostly Christmas jokes.
It's the best Christmas joke and possibly the worst line ever.
Which one? I always wanted to have Christmas in Turkey.
No.
Isn't it time you unwrapped your present? And this is also where we get the premature form of the millennium bug. But I think the one you're talking about is I thought Christmas comes but once a year, which is pretty confident for a Bond who, has been kind of stepping in it all.
Yeah, that's
episode.
like, if that line doesn't induce a collective groan from the audience, then I don't know what
I can't believe you didn't put more into the way you were delivering it.
Yeah, can we set it up? Can we reenact it?
I can't remember what her setup line is. Is it just moaning?
I think they're just rolling around.
Writhing
around in the sheets. Yeah. He says, I thought Christmas comes but once a year.
Ha ha ha. Double entendre.
Very proper.
And she'd be like, or not at all sometimes. 007 remix for the closing titles. We got a nice little techno.
Is that the Moby?
Yeah, it's the Moby 007 theme.
That's cool. I like it.
Techno was so cool back then.
It's still cool. What are you talking about?
All right. Do we want to rate this sucker?
Yeah, I feel like I haven't gone first in a while, and I'm going to, even though I have a feeling this will make this one of our highest rated movies ever, because I am not going to actually trash it. I feel like I should give it a punitively low rating just to anticipate you guys giving it too high a rating. This has got to be like a 009 for both of you. Since that last piece of crap, Tomorrow Never Dies, got ridiculously high ratings for you both. This is clearly a better movie than Tomorrow Never Dies. It should be an easy 007 for me. Easy. It's solidly above average. It's very fun. It's occasionally dumb. It's often amazing. It's got a good cast. It's got a great Bond. It's got really well-crafted action sequences and some solid connective dialogue scenes. The chemistry with Elektra never quite lands as they intended, and she always seems a little too suspicious. And we don't get the sense that she's something special to Bond. If she was supposed to be like another Tracy Bond, like they sort of pitched it. And Renard could have been put to better use, but it checks all the basic boxes. And then there's Christmas Jones. We've seen bad actresses play Bond girls before, but the series has a long history of converting models into leading ladies with mixed results. But this is a whole different level of badness. She's the fourth lead, and she doesn't even show up till halfway through. And yet every scene she's in gives this mega budget blockbuster like a community theater feel that is kind of amazing. Now, it's fantastic as like an experiment to see just how bad one actress can derail a movie, but she just pops up staring vacantly out of space, probably a PA holding a cue card just off the screen, and it just reminds you how fake and manufactured everything about this is, and just sucks the magic right out of the film. I never would have thought it was possible for like one performance to knock an entire point off a movie, but this does, and it's still an above average film. But I'm going to give it a 006.
Wow, that's high praise.
So you didn't think she did a good performance?
Didn't quite nail it. No.
Oh, fascinating.
But did you see her Lara Croft-esque outfit?
No. I knew the shorts definitely suggested intelligence to me, and definitely she had a physicist's body, but
right. So who's the second person to rate this one?
I'll go. I mean, yeah, I thought this was good. I watched this one with my wife, and gauging her reaction, having watched it for the first time, and it kind of, I tried to imagine watching it for the first time myself, and I dug the plot. Like, it was complicated enough for a Bond movie that it had twists and turns, and you didn't really know what was going on in a good way. I don't think I knew that she was the bad guy in the beginning. I think they did a good job of hiding it. What's her character's name? I'm blanking. Electra King. I'll start with the cold open. Maybe that was a bit too long and not my favorite. But after that, I like the involvement of Judi Dench in this one. They gave her a bigger role. I think Electra King was a good villain. Sophie Marceau is a good actress. Denise Richards, super, super sexy. But I agree with Harris. She's not great. But I will say, like I said earlier, that she was bad, but not cringeworthy, annoying bad like they have been in the past.
I think the key word was annoying. Like the other ones who are bad, they like
the one
irksome.
from
they bother you.
View to a Kill really rubbed me the wrong way.
Right.
I was cheering for her to be better. She's very likable, but she's every time she spoke, I was like, oh, this is a dumb movie. Like it was just like
I think
a
that says a
reminder,
lot. Like
I'm an actress.
This movie is good enough that it like pains you to see her be bad in this because you're like, come on, this could have been a better movie.
Classic.
Yeah. And I also think Renard is like a weak ass villain and a missed opportunity.
And a great actor.
Yeah, he is a great
actor.
Just
not used properly.
But having said all that, I think it was a lot of fun, and I gave Tomorrow Never Dies an 8, and I'm not going to give this higher than that. I don't think it's 9 worthy, but I don't want to make it less than Tomorrow Never Dies.
I just want to point out, just because you rated Tomorrow Never Dies wrong doesn't mean you got to continue to compound the mistake.
That's a good point.
Matt, with the right attitude, you're never wrong.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I'm going to go with my gut here. I'm going to give this a 008.
Okay. Well, how when you're in elementary school, you have, different teachers and you start moving around from class to class. And some of the teachers like give you an A based on the fact that you've done good work, and some of the teachers give you an A based on the fact that they're just having a good time.
Where the hell are you going?
Well, I'm just gonna rate it higher than both of you because I just had a good time.
Oh God. This is going to be one of our highest rated movies ever. This is not, for all the people who look at our ratings as something to go by, just know that this is not a very good Bond movie. It's mediocre.
Quiet, you.
What? Yeah, Denise Richards is really, I just find it really amusing what happened there. Like I'm interested to see that this is something that happened in real life. Like, yes, she performed poorly. We all knew it. She got paid really well, and she did her job. And we still put a movie out, and we made money off of it.
Did she do her job, though? Wasn't her job to act at some point?
She did the job to the best of her ability.
Okay, that's better.
I also appreciate the nice send-off to Q that they did in this movie.
Yeah, that's a great one. Q was like a favorite character of mine when I was younger. I was like, he makes the gadgets. That's cool. Because that's how I talked, I guess.
You still talk like that.
I think stuff is cool. So, yeah, I liked it a lot. Yeah, she did her job. Just because, the nuclear power plant has a meltdown doesn't mean the safety inspector wasn't there. It just means they looked the wrong way.
Well, if you hire Denise Richards as a nuclear power plant safety inspector,
maybe the guy who hired her, I always wonder this, maybe he was just a dog. Like he just was floored by her. That she walked in the room, she's got a low cut top on. He's just
it's like the casting director's like, you know who the best actress is? Whoever that one with the rack is. She was amazing.
Are you talking about the original time she ever got hired, or hired for this movie?
No, I'm talking about for her nuclear physicist position.
Yeah. Oh, the character.
You know who
right,
I really?
Yeah. Yeah,
the guy's she's like, here's my resume. He's like, yeah, great, and he just takes that and puts it away.
Resume, schmesume, you're hired.
Yeah. She pronounces physicist incorrectly, and he's like, yeah, whatever, you're hired.
Yeah, so I guess, I'm not trying to be like our hypothetical physicist's hiring manager guy, but I just enjoyed the movie. I always enjoy it. It's a good one.
Well, we could just chalk you up for like a 009 every time.
009.
But
wherever
when's the last time you gave something less than a 008?
The
Has it ever
License to Kill.
happened?
License to Kill, right? That was like a 6 or something.
That was a good one.
I'll tell you right now.
Matt's looking it up.
See, this is why I feel all this added pressure to always give something a terrible score, because if I don't, then you guys just make everything sound like it's a great movie.
Well, I don't want to do spoilers, but the next one is going to be below
All
an
right,
8.
what is it? We're looking for the last one that you rated below
An 8.
Oh, it was License to Kill.
See, and he was wrong about that one. License to Kill is excellent.
Yeah,
Okay.
you were wrong.
You just like those weird fishy statues.
And that theme song, I got a license to kill. Oh, this one had a good theme song too.
Yeah.
Yeah, theme song was bomb. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, no, everything was great. Denise Richards was terrible. I mean, everything was okay. Denise Richards was terrible.
License to Watch?
Yeah, License to Watch all the way.
Yes.
Yeah, License to Watch. Alrighty. This has been an episode 2 months in the making, and I think we're going to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Absolutely. And James Bond will return in Die Another Day.
Another Day. Subscribe to our podcasts. Rate us. Tell us what you think. Go on Reddit. The James Bond subreddit is where I post the episodes. Tell us that we're great. Tell us that we suck.
Shoot us an email. I think it would be cool.
Bondcast, jamesbondcast@gmail.com. Let us know your thoughts, suggestions. Maybe we'll talk about you on the air. That's all I got. Till next time, die another day.